potatoes, and potatoes don't make for good cookies. These are delicious. Now, we're never going to reveal the name of the one who made them because we don't want other people to be upset or your cookie wasn't chosen to be on the air. This was the only cookie submitted for our review, so that's why it's on the air for sure.
Just one.
Another parishioner asked, well, how many cookies do they have to make? I suppose one answer to that is how long is a rope? As long as is needed is the usual answer. But make a dozen or so. The or so means if you have a couple of extra, it's okay. Because to get a true sample of the cookie, you need to judge them where they might be on the cookie sheet, the heat of the oven in a certain area. Anyway, it's a good balancing way. But that's only if you want to. No pressure. We enjoy doing parish or parish regardless.
Now, I will say these have a lovely color. You know, you can see the deep wine influence, just a little glaze on the top there that was nicely
delicious,
baked by the
excellent cookies.
The perfect tea biscuit. Now, we received a few other questions from some of our viewers after yesterday's episode. One of them was, I'm hearing all of this about Cafe Lepanto, the new parish education and meeting space that's under construction, which is going to be beautiful. It's got the best wall colors, excellent wall colors, the best paint colors available downstairs. Some of you have asked, what is the story of Cafe Lepanto? So here to give us the story behind the great name, the one and only Father James Mary Sullivan.
Well, one thing that I think is always important in any parish is that there's a closeness between the parishioners and the patron of the parish. And as is often the case, Dominican parishes often are named for Dominican saints. And we have a great saint in Pope St. Pius V. And perhaps what he is best known for is not his last name, which is Ghislietti. Doesn't really even roll off the tongue. So we weren't going to call it Cafe Ghislietti. We thought of a couple of other names, but what seemed to fit was truly what he is best known for, and that is the Battle of Lepanto, which is in present-day Greece. At the time, it was part of the Ottoman Empire or the Turkish Empire, and from that naval port, the Turkish fleet was going to attack Europe. And if they had succeeded in gaining a foothold, perhaps in Venice, I'm not sure of the particulars of the war strategy, but if they had gained a foothold in Europe, it's quite likely that all of Europe would have fallen to Islam. Many people may know that in 12th century, Spain, the Moors, another name for the Muslims of the day, were just beat back through Spain and across back into Africa. And this was significant because that side of attack of Europe, namely the western side, was begun, the beatback was begun by the Battle of Tours in France. So in the 16th century, the Turks had decided to come at Europe from the other side. And Pius V did what any Dominican pope or otherwise could do, and that is that he prayed the rosary, and he begged Our Lady to protect Christendom, to protect not just the church, but all of the citizens of Europe. And because of this, the constant praying of the rosary, he had the sailors praying the rosary, he had the rosary confraternities in Rome praying the rosary, he himself was on his knees praying the rosary, that this great victory was won in the Gulf of Lepanto, and that was the Italian Latinized name of the particular spot in the Turkish, in the Greek port. But it's because of that battle that Europe was saved from becoming Muslim. And this is significant because of the treasure of our own Catholic faith, not as being over and against something else, but having the right to protect itself. Second to this is the great history of ringing bells throughout Christendom. our neighbors, at least the ones not complaining about it, might be appreciative that from the bell tower now at noon and 6. Did you do it for the early morning too?
At 7 o'clock.
Oh, it's 7?
The sisters hear it when they're
Oh,
starting
the sisters
Mass.
do. The sisters are good about that. But we have the Regina Caeli playing. Usually it's the Angelus bells. But this is important because all of Christendom rings bells. If you go to a Muslim country, bells are not allowed, but it's the human voice that calls people to prayer. But the bell was significant of something much greater, really. So that is yet another sidebar.
Why bells? There we go.
We'll put that. That's another category.
hole.
But that's the reason for Cafe Lepanto. I Googled it, and there is a Cafe Lepanto somewhere in Italy and another one in Spain. But our name is completely original. It's just a coincidence that they stole it sometime before us.
Now, one thing that Father James is going to be very clear about, we're using the Italian spelling. There are 2
Of
F's.
cafe, yes.
I've been corrected for this numerous times already.
And pleasantly so.
There are 2 F. Thank you. Yes, I'm very grateful for all those corrections. 2 F's in Cafe Lepanto.
Well, the McDonald's Cafe, not to confuse your favorite place, only has 1 F. That's another reason Cafe Lepanto does not look like Cafe McDonald's.
The Battle of Lepanto is actually already depicted in our church. Father mentioned Pope Pius V being on his knees praying the rosary, which you can see in that beautiful mosaic, which is the image that we're using in all of our backgrounds from WSPV Studios.
Yes, that's right.
Which is important. That's important to give a shout out to our
We might bring you on a field trip there.
We are a production of WSPV Studios. Another reviewer wrote in and asked for some comments on the scriptures. Asked for our favorite Bible passages, which is very interesting. I have 2. I have a real one and then one for your amusement. My real one is from John's Gospel. Unless a grain of wheat fall to the ground and die, it remains a single grain with no life. That verse I find particularly beautiful. It reveals the call, that all of us have to need to die to ourselves. Father James loves to remind me to die to myself. You can see that face. He's already thinking of ways that he can call me to die to myself today. I'll hear them later. Unless a grain of wheat fall to the ground and die, it remains a single grain. This is also the verse that Dostoevsky chose for the front of the Brothers Karamazov, the epigraph. That's the word for the little verse at the beginning of the book. That's the epigraph for Brothers Karamazov, which is my favorite novel. So, unless a grain of wheat fall to the ground and die, it remains a single grain with no life. My other verse...
I can't wait for this one.
My other verse is from the Acts of the Apostles, where cars make an appearance. Did you know this, Father James?
Cars?
Cars.
C-A-R-S?
Cars.
Cars, okay.
Cars. Yep.
All right.
Where the disciples were all in one accord.
It's sad. Sad. Well, one verse that always has encouraged me, and I didn't look it up beforehand because I think it's Matthew 28:20, which is when Jesus says, "Behold, I am with you until the end of the ages." And he says this just before his ascension into heaven. And actually, when I was in my first assignment at our parish in Cincinnati, the Dominican sisters, same, of St. Cecilia, run our school there. And I think it was an 8th grade project or something like that. And the sisters had to ask, the students had to ask all the priests these questions. And I just remember thinking at that time, for perhaps the first time, what my favorite scripture verse is. And it was that one. Behold, I am with you always until the end of the ages. And then my favorite funny verse, there is a great one in the Acts of the Apostles. I don't know the citation for it, but it goes something like, and even the priests began to believe. Which I think is, to get priests to believe is pretty good.
That's good. Yeah.
Now, they mean that the Jewish priests coming over to Christianity, but anyway. But my favorite funny verse is actually from the Old Testament. And now many of you already have an introduction to this verse, because when you go to baseball games, and I don't know if they do it in basketball games, football games maybe. But
wow,
people,
you just listed
I've seen them on TV.
Sports.
Yes, they
wow,
have. I got a whole list of comments what the lines on the floor of the gym are for, and the class is called phys ed, not gym. I don't know. I avoided it anyway. So, but you'll see people at all of these professional sports games, at least you used to, hold up big placards that said John 3:16. Now, of course, that verse is, "For God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, so that whoever would believe in him would have eternal life." And of course, that's a beautiful verse. But the verse that I sort of favor a little more than that is Leviticus 3:16. Now, it's talking about, in this verse, the sacrifice that's placed on the altar and what's burnt up for the Lord. So that's the context. But the verse, Leviticus 3:16, is, "All fat is the Lord's." So I think that sort of sums it up right there. It's actually beautiful. Might as well. I'll take a little
biscuit.
Look at that. How delicious they are. So that's just a little funny verse. You can write those down. You can play this game with your family. What's your favorite funny verse? What's your favorite serious verse?
We have a little bit more news from the parish. As we've been saying, we've been moving some things around. One piece has to do with our parish offices and how we're situated. As you know, we've been using the rectory a little bit differently than we have in the past this year. That's been where our parish offices have been, now that Father James and I reside at the Priory at Providence College. The second floor of the rectory has been used by the school for administrative space this year. The first floor has been used by the parish for offices. And the basement has been mixed use, part of it being given over to the school and part of it being used for parish meetings, the money counters and conferences and that kind of thing in the old friar's dining room. Bells, isn't that nice?
See? And we did
Ringing
not even time
throughout
it
Christendom. Not as nice though as when the Gordon Food Service truck drove by. That just
the backup
just
beep,
left
or-
some ambiance, as we were.
I missed that. I might have eaten a red wine biscuit.
Like thinking about Leviticus.
That's a good one.
But so we have some new plans for the rectory and for how the parish offices are going to be used, where they're going to be located.
Well, the big move, and now that no one's here, we're able, as I said last time, to do a lot of cleaning and rearranging of things. So this I brought up to the parish council and to the finance council before, but I think the time has come to have the sisters move here to the rectory to allow that, because at present we have 5 sisters assigned to St. Pius. One of the sisters works at Providence College in the campus ministry, and 4 are in our school doing the beautiful and necessary work that they do. And so this will ultimately allow the parish the expansion it needs in terms of raising money to finish the roof that I mentioned last time. So we'll have to investigate that if the convent can be sold, the property behind them. Because that would be perfect, for the needs of the parish. And then Father Patrick and I, in moving things around and cleaning out, what we think we'd like to do, and we're in the midst of talking to everyone about it, is move the parish offices over to the church. Number one, so there are no stairs involved in getting up to the office, but also a greater accessibility, you could say. If you're coming to Mass, it would be nice if the offices were right there, as opposed to stopping in front of the rectory, getting out, coming in, going back, go back to you, then pulling back, So it might help all of that, the flow of how people can get into the office and all. So we're working on those plans, and we'll keep you, in touch, in the loop on all those things, just to, find out the best way to do it. And part of this is all connected with reusing the church hall again in a fuller way, we hope. And when you're able to get down there, you'll see we've repainted a lot of sections, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So that's something to look forward to.
St. John Vianney used his sacristy counter as a standing desk.
No,
So,
yeah.
so
We're not going that far.
We'll walk in, we'll see Father James standing there.
I do better with
writing his
chairs.
homilies
Yeah.
on his standing desk.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that.
Do we have any other news? Any other updates?
Well, as you know, Father Patrick, he never really understands the value of writing notes, so I have a couple of little note cards here,
Little
and
remarks.
color-coded
Little
index
remarks
cards, I
on
think,
your
just a
card.
couple. So we should mention that. So this will be aired on Saturday, and then hopefully we'll see. The reviews might not be so good for the second edition. The producer might cut us. These are still pilot issues, or we won't get cookies.
WSPD,
No cookies, we will perish without cookies. So, but Thursday, this coming Thursday, April 30th, is the feast of our patron, Pope St. Pius V. And as a special gift for the parish, one of our Dominican priests in Rome, Father Jordan Tirano, whose sister is in the parish. Hi, Pam. Father Jordan is a confessor at St. Mary Major, and his main apostolate is hearing confessions. And Father Jordan is going to say Mass for all the parish, for our school, for all the children, all the faculty, all the staff, for our parish staff, for Father Patrick, he needs it, and for myself. He's going to say Mass for us on Thursday in Rome, near the tomb of St. Pius V. There's no altar right at the tomb of St. Pius V, but they'll have a big celebration. And if you've ever been to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, you may know where the tomb of St. Pius V is, but that would be a great blessing coming up Thursday, this week. That's good. I think that's all.
I think that's all.
We're happy you enjoyed the first edition. We hope you enjoyed the second. Any questions or comments you'd like us to make, or I know some of you, I don't even want to mention names, but you could write in and tell us topics you don't want us to talk about or things to bring up. That might be just as helpful. But again, a dozen of something, that's fine. Delicious. Thank you for the red wine biscuits. We got delicious bakery pizza too, but bakery pizza can't be really eaten on a production like this, and we're very messy when we have it. So, yeah. But it was delicious. I left some for Father Patrick.
May God bless you.
Thanks for joining us.